Hi, for those of you I haven't met before, I'm Heather, the Group Health, Wellbeing and Engagement Partner, coming to you live from my kitchen. These past few weeks have been really strange, obviously not just for me, but for everyone watching this video, and it's clearly a challenging time for everyone's health and well-being. So with that in mind, we produced the guide to looking after your well-being during the pandemic. That was sent out by Jed last week. Hopefully people have had a chance to have a look at that because there is some useful advice in there. But people have also been approaching me directly to ask questions, which is great. But we thought it would be a good idea to do a bit of a Q&A with those frequently asked questions. So this is the first of those sessions. If there's a question that you would like answered or think would be worth covering, do let me know. It can be about anything wellbeing related at all. But the first area that I really wanted to cover is a really important one, and one that is probably affecting most of us, certainly affecting me right now. And that's, how do you stop yourself from feeling overwhelmed during this time? And I guess the first thing that I would say to that is that you can't necessarily stop yourself from feeling anything. This is a really overwhelming time, something that none of us have experienced in our lifetimes before. And it's completely normal that you would feel anxious or worried or sad about the events that are going on and how they're affecting you. And you should never feel bad or guilty for that. But that being said, there are things that you can do to help prevent those feelings from becoming overwhelming, and things that you can do to protect your mental health. So in the first week or so that the coronavirus crisis was really ramping up in Europe, I was glued to news site live blogs about what was going on, getting every single little update I could. And constantly checking the news in this way can be a way of trying to assert control over events by staying completely up to date with every latest development. But in reality, what you're likely to do there is create and exacerbate anxiety. And that's definitely what happened with me. And so if you're finding that this is something that you're doing, you might want to reassess how you're consuming the news and whether it is actually helpful to you. Obviously, it's really important that we stay up to date with what the situation is, so we know the latest advice and guidance from the government, and we can ensure that we're acting responsibly and in a way that's going to protect us and those around us. But it's very possible to do this in a way that also limits our exposure to that kind of information overload that's going to contribute to making us feel overwhelmed. So the first thing that I'd recommend, really simple, but honestly makes a world of difference, and that's disabling your news alert notifications. Because this means that you stay in control of when you decide to actively seek out information, rather than being passively provided with it when you might otherwise be relaxing or thinking of something else entirely. Because those notifications aren't discerning. I've had them come rolling in with a breaking news update when I'm trying to fall asleep, and it's too tempting not to read it, and before you know it, sleep is the furthest thing from your mind. So instead, you might want to think about setting a particular time or times each day to check in with the news. Personally, I'm trying to just tune into the daily press conference out of Downing Street each afternoon, because I know that that will give me the key information that I need to stay informed, but I'll also be able to, fingers crossed, switch off for the rest of the day. On that note as well, it's really important to think about where you're getting your news and information from. Remember to question the sources of the information that you're getting to ensure that what you're reading is reliable. There's a lot of questionable reporting at the best of times from many news outlets, and social media can contribute to this as well. Information that's reported via Facebook or WhatsApp is not necessarily reliable or accurate. I've had to tell some members of my family off a couple of times for sharing news updates that sound credible, some quote from the head of nursing at a top London hospital or something similar, but actually have no basis in fact. And these things are usually shared with us with the best of intentions, but misinformation is never helpful. It's best that we get our information from sources that we know are sound, like the government or the World Health Organization or the NHS. And one final point regarding the news as well is to try and seek out the good news stories too, because they are out there. A lot of the major news outlets have feeds dedicated to good news stories. I know that BBC do one, so do HuffPost. I think the Telegraph do too. And there are lots of Instagram accounts dedicated to good news as well, if you look for them. Just obviously remember the point about making sure you're choosing credible sources. Because as awful as these situations are, they also bring out the best in people. And I don't think that you can underestimate how uplifting that can be. So on that note as well, something that can help to anchor us is to think of the silver linings and bright sides, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant they might be. A lot of mental health charities and organisations have issued lots of guidance and ideas on how to remain positive. And something that's often suggested is the idea of a gratitude journal. Essentially, you identify one or more than one things each day that you are grateful for or thankful for, and you write them down. For some people, that can feel a little bit hippy dippy. And if it is just a little bit far out of your comfort zone to do that, then maybe try instead to just identify and focus on the positives you can find, even if you're not making a record of them. And the thing is about something like this, that's a really big global event that's out of our control, is that it can also make us feel kind of helpless, and that in itself is overwhelming. But in reality, we can all play a part in making the world a better place right now. Even things as small as not participating in the panic buying of loo roll and staple foods so that those people who really do need them can get them, or contributing to stemming the spread of misinformation by thinking twice about what you're sharing on social media. It all helps. Um, if you're able, maybe consider engaging in volunteering. This could take many forms, from donating to food banks, checking up on elderly people in your community to see if they need any help, volunteering to be a phone buddy for an isolated person. A lot of local councils have set up emergency volunteering schemes. Lots of local community groups are organising via Facebook. And there's the nationwide Good Samaritan scheme that's run by the NHS that's clearly going to be invaluable in the national effort against coronavirus. So maybe think if you can participate in that as well. But all of that being said, it is enough to only look after one person during all of this, and it's okay if that person is yourself. So find the things that are going to help you relax, whether it's exercise, reading, baking, binge watching Netflix. Now is the time for us all to indulge in a bit of self-care and do the things that we enjoy doing and maybe don't have time to do normally. But on the flip side of that, there are some things that we do need to be careful about. I just read earlier today that in March, supermarket sales of alcohol outsold groceries, even with all of the panic buying going on. And, that's understandable, but just a reminder to be mindful of the coping mechanisms that you're using and whether these are going to serve you well in the longer term. And finally, I think something that we can easily forget when we're in the midst of all this is that it is temporary. One day, hopefully sooner rather than later, things will be back to normal. But until then, keep your questions coming in, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon.